Welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast, where we're all about sharing the forbidden secrets and slightly embellished truths about corporate cybersecurity programs. We're ranting, we're raving, and we're telling you the stuff that nobody talks about on their fancy website and trade show giveaways, all to protect you from cybersecurity criminals. And now, here's your hosts, Mike Rotondo, Zach Fuller, and Lauro Chavez.
Hello and welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast. This is your co-host, Zach Fuller, joined by Lauro Chavez and Mike Rotondo. And in our usual fashion, we're going to kick it off with cybersecurity news. Mike?
An interesting week in the news with Thanksgiving, since cyber criminals apparently don't eat turkey. We've got Office 365 phishing abuses, Oracle and Amazon cloud services. So they're now leveraging O365 and AWS to go ahead and harvest credentials. CISA warns of a password leak on vulnerable Fortinet VPNs, more trouble for Fortinet. Hackers are targeting Mac OS users with this updated malware. Very interesting. There's two new Vietnamese APTs out there that are targeting Mac, which is kind of interesting, which dovetails into our next story. Microsoft links Vietnamese state hackers to crypto mining malware campaign. So that's out there. That's APT 32, also called Ocean Lotus. We have a Mage card attack convincingly hijacks PayPal transactions at checkout. So, be careful when you're doing that holiday shopping. And hey, WannaCry's back. So old vulnerabilities open the door for WannaCry ransomware. Apparently, there's still a lot of people that aren't patching, and WannaCry is coming back. FBI warns of BEC scammers using email auto forwarding attacks. This is becoming another thing. 100% rise in issues in this. FBI and Homeland Security warn of APT attacks on think tanks in the U.S. Apparently, they're targeting think tanks because you got a lot of ex-government people that manage these things and manage the IT security there, and they figure if they can break into these, that'll give them a roadmap for breaking into the U.S. government. So, pretty smart move. Open source software security vulnerabilities exist for over 4 years before detection. So for all you guys out there using open source software, keep in mind there's some issues out there that have been around for a while. Google hacker details zero-click wormable Wi-Fi exploit to hack iPhones. More trouble for Apple. This is CVE 2020-9844. And that's it for the headlines. Lauro?
Ocean Lotus. It's a funny name. No, they don't eat turkey and they don't make peace.
It's very, very feng shui.
Yeah, it is.
Like a name of maybe an air freshener or something.
Right.
Actually,
Yeah,
I
it is.
think I had that last night at Jade Palace.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like a mixed drink at, one of the places I frequent for sushi.
Yeah, I like it medium rare myself.
Personally, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the best. It's the best way to have it. Yeah, and I was going to say, and I hope they don't, you can attack Ocean Lotus, you can attack think tanks. That's fine. Just don't start attacking chicken nugget tanks, because that's when everybody here will be upset.
There you go.
For vulnerabilities this week, well, I guess probably the main thing is I can't believe that Microsoft is not on the list again. However, Cisco's up there. So if you run a Cisco and you've got the management controller, there's multiple remote code executions for that piece of software. So patch that. And then the other big thing is if you're running WordPress and you got the site with the Ultimate Member plugin, they've got an unauthenticated privilege escalation that's been validated. So make sure you patch that or throw a word fence in front of that or something. Yeah, there's really not a lot left for this week. Check your updates anyway. I might have missed something. So
today we're going to talk about cybersecurity industry challenges, and this is a deep and dark, gloomy topic. And so I don't know how long or how much we're going to get through, because there's a lot to talk about here. But we want to keep it light and fun.
So bring your mud boots.
Bring your mud boots. I'm wearing mine. But I say this a lot, and it's not a hit on anybody. But unfortunately, as an industry, as a cybersecurity industry, we're failing to adequately protect the backbone of our nation's economy and our way of life. Right? The cyber criminals are still winning, no matter how hard we try. Now, there's a lot of brilliant people working on these problems, a lot of people, a lot of boots on the ground. So those of you in the cybersecurity profession, we thank you. Keep fighting the good fight. But the fact of the matter is we're not there yet, right? We got a lot to figure out. And as an industry, the cybersecurity industry is new. It's relatively speaking. There's a lot we got to do. We got to figure a lot of things out. But one of the things that I think that we have to do is that we have to look at this. People call it, cyber warfare and all this stuff. I think a lot of those people don't really haven't been to war, don't really know what war really is. But in war, you got to accomplish the mission with the resources you have. So you don't get the opportunity to say, oh, well, we don't have enough people, right? Or, oh, we're failing because there's such a shortage of cybersecurity professionals out there. That's called an excuse. There is a shortage, no doubt about it, but we can't just rest on that and let the enemy win, which is kind of what's happening right now. And no matter what cybersecurity events I go to, they're always talking about that. It's like, oh, that's the problem. That's the problem. But I think there's other kind of deeper underlying issues that we have to look at, because we don't have the option to sit here and wait for 10 or 15 years for these, up and coming cybersecurity professionals to really get, seasoned and really get in the groove of things and really get to know what they're doing. If we actually are treating this like war, that's not really an option, in my opinion. Anyway, curious to hear what you guys think.
Well, you're right. I mean, I can't say it better than that. It's you're paying, at this point, it's the people that can pay for the protection, right, are getting it because, Ocean Lotus is not sleeping, right? They don't care about making peace. They have motives, and they're going to carry those motives out regardless of timing or people involved or collateral damage. Again, so, I guess it's making an excuse. And I think that a lot of organizations want to do something about it, right? And I think that they don't know how to go about it, and they don't always get the budgetary requirements to go about it. And I think that's maybe that's one of the main drivers of this inaction that we're seeing, right? I don't know, maybe.
One of the things, just to add to that, so I've had conversations in the past with some CIOs and CISOs of some fairly large, even government agencies, and formerly from the private sector. And one of their comments was, "So if we get breached, our stock price takes a hit for a couple months, and then we're back." I think it's the misperception that there's a minor financial hit. They're missing the criticality of the data. They're missing the potential impact on people's lives. They're missing bank accounts get cleaned out at inopportune times, and that sort of thing. And I think that's a lot of the issue with funding for this war. That's a problem. And then they're missing that the end goal of the cyber criminal.
Sure, it's caused mass disruption, right? I mean, and that's what they're causing. I mean, from school systems to everything else. I mean, now that Bitcoin's again, up there where predictions, said it was going to be, to the $20,000 range, there's going to be even more probably crime toward it. You'll see more hits at these exchanges and things like that. And so now you've got, PayPal, who's basically accepted the crypto game at this point, right? Where you can go through them now as an exchange. And so I think that's going to warrant more crime towards holdings and people that are essentially hodling or holding, as they say, that cryptocurrency, because cyber criminals can basically take it without any trace, and then they can use it for their activities, right, to fund their activities. And there's just millions of it out there, millions of dollars of it out there, and so I think you'll see that community start to care too, right? And that's Coinbase, I think, is a great example, right? Like what cybersecurity team are they using, right? What are they getting? Regular pen tests, or and I hate to throw that into the business, into the market of what we're looking at, but it is the people that, regardless of whether we agree with it or not, the people that make up the body of the American people that are participating in these types of activities are using these places, right? So they're the ones that are at risk to get taken advantage of, or even have all their crypto stolen, right? And same for banks or anything else.
And if you look at, going back to, if you're really going to call this, a cyber war, war against cybercrime, right? And there's always the other big problem is that there's always a a tipping point, right? And where there's a point in which, one side starts to gain ground over the other, and at a certain point they've overtaken them, right? And so the problem is that the way this works is with asymmetrical warfare, like it basically mirrors the way that cyber criminals operate, right? And it mirrors the way we fight them, is asymmetrical style. And so the thing there is that it's really a war of attrition, right? So we're kind of fighting this dispersed enemy. What they're doing is they're just slowly scraping away resources. So while these, unfortunately, certain business leaders and such will say, oh, well, yeah, we'll just let the stock price dip. We'd rather, take that risk than put money into this. Well, the problem is you're funding the enemy with that, and their power is growing stronger, every day that happens. And so as they take from us, it fuels them. And the other side too is, ransomware and such. It actually results in physical destruction. I mean, it's known that, various intelligence agencies and such, that the vast majority of ransom payments go to funding terrorism. Talking about physical terrorism, not just cybercrime. So that's not a good thing. But I think there's some things that we can, rather than say, basically kind of use.
That's a hard point to drive home, Zach. I mean, everybody needs to kind of, there's another way to put that. It's like if you pay a ransom from a ransomware to a cyber criminal, there's most likely going to be someone strapped with something to them, blowing something up in another place because of that money that you gave them.
Oh yeah.
That's as real as it gets, right? I don't think it gets any closer to the meat than that.
It's a myopic view that many of these executives have, is that, I need to take care of my job, my company, and this, and then, we'll deal with the issues when it comes. And I understand that to a certain perspective of dealing with an issue when it comes, but you need to prevent or put every roadblock in place to prevent that issue from happening. And that's where we're failing.
Right. We're failing big there. And I think, some of the cyber insurance is, going to look into that. What did you do to protect yourself? Why should I pay you this large sum of money when you've only had this policy for 6 months, right? Or a year or 2 years, and you've got this massive breach and you're requesting, $15 million. You want to pay ransomware, right? You want to pay ransoms to cyber terrorism. And, why should we pay this? What did you do that we would not deem negligible? And so I hope that there'll be some form of checks and balances in the form of that, right? Because at the end, it's bad leadership calls, right? Well, your cybersecurity professionals or technical professionals, they want to do their jobs.
Yeah, I think the cyber insurance thing actually feeds into a little bit of the negligence, because they're like, oh, well, we're insured. Right. So we'll do the absolute minimum. And then one of the things that would be beneficial, and I don't know that we could change the industry, but, would be beneficial for the cyber insurance companies, is to go ahead and say, hey, we're going to do a cyber risk assessment before we write this policy for you as part of our underwriting.
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
If you want to do that, you're going to go through these steps. You're going to get a pen test. We're going to look at your frameworks. We're going to look at your evidence. You're going to look at this, that, and the other thing. And if you don't pass, then we aren't writing you. Now,
exactly.
Insurance companies are going to be out there and they want to do business, so they're not necessarily going to put their clients through it. But I would think that would be the best, thing for the industry, would be to make that a requirement. And if you'd like an insurance company out there and you need some help with that, you can reach out to Z Fuller at silentsector.com, and he will gladly help you out with that.
Absolutely will help you.
Yeah.
Well, in all fairness to the insurance companies, I think they have been getting more sophisticated. Over the last few years, we've definitely seen their questionnaires and such get more sophisticated. Whereas a few years ago it was, do you have a pulse? All right, here's cyber insurance. Right. Whereas now they're actually doing a little more thorough vetting process. But I think, to your point, Mike, a full blown, treat it like it was an actual third party, real deal risk assessment with the technical side, all the pen testing and such, and that way they get a good lens on it, and that affects your premium, right? You come in perfectly clean. There's nothing that we can get to through the pen tests, and great. Then your premium goes down, and I think that's a great way to go. I just don't know that I think they're just wanting to underwrite policies quicker nowadays. And
Well, what do you think about it? For car insurance, they pull your driver's record, right? I mean, yeah, it's not quite as involved, but still, your rates are dependent upon your past production. So,
Well, actually, even in current driving, right, they have that, like for my insurance company, they have that. It's kind of a safe driver program. So you install an app on your phone and it rates your driving based on the gyroscopes that are built into the modern phones, right? And so it can tell your speed and how fast you stop and these sorts of things. And my son uses it and it adjusts his premium based on how well he's doing, right? I mean, I would imagine that they would have it, with all the infinite money that they have, right? They would have some form of level of sophistication to implement something that did similar, right? Where they could do a pulse check on the clients,
right.
From a, from I guess a risk perspective, right? A technical assessment risk perspective, and then get some sort of a setting at any given time of the year, and then adjust their premium, based on how many vulnerabilities they have.
I agree, Mike. I think the insurance thing kind of perpetuates it. But another problem that we have, I think, getting back to the idea of we can't just say, oh, we don't have enough people, we can't do this. It's how we utilize the people that we do have, because I would say that there are some brilliant minds all across the U.S. in the cybersecurity field. But in our capacities, we get to talk to for everybody from CISOs to security analysts all over the place, and so many of them are just so tired of being, especially the more experienced people are so tired of being in meetings 6-8 hours a day and dealing with the corporate politics. They're almost pulled away from actually protecting the organization. I know you guys have quite a bit of experience with that with some of the large Fortune 500s and such.
Oh, yeah, the last company I worked at, there were weeks when I had 38 hours worth of meetings in a week. And
when are you going to do work on the weekends?
Yeah. So
it's ridiculous. Well, and then you also have the old way of thinking of looking at it. Well, we'll implement a compliance framework, but to a limited scope area, and we'll call that we secure our environment. You know what I mean? So yeah, and sitting in meetings and trying to argue those points and not being able to actually conduct real I would say real meaningful work.
Yeah. And I always love dealing with the meathead VP of sales who thinks he knows security because he read a story about it in a newspaper article on the flight from here to New York, and he's going to tell us how to do things. And that's always interesting because he's a VP, so he knows, and security guys don't. So
yeah, buying a boat doesn't make you a sailor.
Yeah.
That's a fancy jet ski you got there, buddy, but good luck. Yeah. Good luck in the ocean.
So that comes down to really, it's like, what do we do about it? I think as organizations, we got to put cybersecurity people in a bit of a different bucket, I think, than the rest. And because you're recognizing that, hey, it's hard to find them, hard to keep them. Well, let's do something about it. Let's change the culture, at least in their environment, and make it better, make it more palatable. I think, of course, now with COVID, the remote work is the standard, but just prior, last year, people were still pushing back against having their security professionals work remotely or finding talent, kind of scattered around the country in order to fill the roles, and then saying things like, oh, well, I know we need this. I know we have this big gap in talent, but we got to have it in-house sitting in this chair. We can't use a third party, or we can't outsource it to somebody else. So I think there are a lot of issues there. And I think it just comes down to looking at what is that corporate environment, or is your HR process the same for your security professionals as it is for everybody else? And if so, and if they're still getting pulled into all the bureaucracy and the meetings and such, then they're not doing the work that they were set out to do. So you take somebody that could be extremely capable if you just let them run, and then you're holding them back. And we see that a lot out there in the business world these days.
There's an insightful book called Cyber Rants, I think, that discusses that on page 63 and following, about what do the employee want, and how to keep a cybersecurity professional, and the options of them working remotely. So
excellent point. Shameless plug. Buy it on Amazon. It's a great book.
Yes,
we think
he's not ashamed. What I can tell you is what's sad is that the technology to work remote's been out for a really long time.
But the amazing amount of vulnerabilities that we're finding because of COVID, that's pretty scary, because a lot of those softwares have not been vetted properly, or the tools have been set up and then they've just been kind of left. Weak certificates, or the latest Microsoft issue with what was it called with RDP? I can't remember. Anyway, it's been out there, but it hasn't been. I think it's becoming more perfected. But we talked a couple of weeks ago where the prices of the logins for remote access are actually dropping, which tells you there's been a whole lot of exploitation out there, and they're figured out how to get it. So,
yep, they're preying on it, counting on the turmoil. And this is certainly a time of turmoil, but
well, it's really a race to patch now, because they're finding code and from the patches they're reverse engineering that to write exploits. Right. We've kind of seen on the markets, you'll see things that are half written from a couple patches ago, where they're counting on an organization to have something little that's not up to date that they can get around, or there's some remote code execution piece for it or injection piece for it that is just not written properly, and they can do something, and they know that no one's going to patch it for the next year, maybe, or 2 years, right? So they'll have a good attack surface for a while.
I think the part of the problem too is the common misperception of the hackers as lone guy sitting in mom's basement wearing a black hoodie with tinfoil on the windows, eating a Hot Pocket.
First off, I love Hot Pockets.
Yeah, quit talking about Laura like that.
Listen, Hot Pockets.
I love my mama, and I don't mind living in her basement. How do you do that?
But in reality, these APTs are corporate structure with lots of money behind them, and
You gotta fill out timesheets.
Yeah,
I know.
it surprised me.
You do. Yeah, you're like the hacker. You think you're Slim Bean jeans coming in? No, you got to fill out timesheets like everybody else if you're going to work for them.
Yeah, put a tie on.
Yeah, their severance package may be a little rougher than the average corporate environment. So,
yeah, that's true. There's that downside.
Yeah, they have the behind the woodshed policy.
Yeah, termination procedure is literally a termination procedure.
This is an awesome topic. I think there's a lot more to talk about. I think we should continue the conversation here. But wrapping it up for today, there are a lot of struggles out there. The industry is figuring itself out. Kind of take everything you hear with a grain of salt, except for what we say. That's perfect, of course. But really, there's a lot of marketing garbage out there, a lot of stuff that, a lot of snake oil sales, and a lot of myths and hype. And so I think as in the business, it's and for those of you listening that are in cybersecurity, I think it's all of our jobs to really educate the public on what's real, not just what we want to sell that day. And so we'll certainly continue this conversation. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.
Pick up your copy of the Cyber Rants book on Amazon today. And if you're looking to take your cybersecurity program to the next level, visit us online at www.silentsector.com. Join us next time for another edition of the Cyber Rants podcast.